When we talk about mobile-friendly websites, we're talking about websites that will render properly and look good in mobile devices, so tablets and mobile phones. This is even more important when you consider that Google has rolled out something called mobile-first indexing, and what that means is Google will use the mobile version of your website for indexing and ranking. Those sites that aren't mobile-friendly, well, they're not going to do too well under mobile-first indexing. Maybe this is Google's attempt at forcing webmasters to create mobile-friendly websites, and there's good reason for it because more and more people are using mobile devices to browse the web. If you look at your own Google Analytics, you'll probably find 50% or more are coming on mobile phones and tablets. There is an easy way of finding out whether your website is mobile friendly. It's to go to this URL. It's search.google.com/test/mobile friendly. You can find it easy enough in Google if you just search for Google mobile friendly and this page will come up. And all you do is simply paste in your website, click on test URL, and the mobile friendly test will run and analyze your website. This test has now completed, and page loading issues, view details. There we see page partially loaded, and it gives me some information about this. But the most important thing is that it says page is mobile friendly. You can go in, look at the details, and try and work out how to fix these things if you like. We've got on the right a mobile screenshot there to show you what it looks like on a mobile phone. And we've also got some additional resources here if you want to go down them. The only time I would get too concerned about this is if you come up with a non-mobile friendly page. And to be honest, I've looked in Google to try and show you one as an example, and they are really difficult to find. The pages that in Google typically are mobile friendly, but I did find one. As you can see from the screenshot, mostly text, and yet it's not mobile friendly. Google will tell you why it's not mobile friendly. This one actually, this web page is done in Joomla and fixed 3 issues to make it mobile friendly. Text is too small to read. Over on that screenshot you can see the text is really small. So that would be fairly easy to fix by editing the CSS. Clickable elements are too close together. So where there are hyperlinks or buttons or anywhere that need to be clicked, these menu items at the top, for example, they're too close together for a mobile device. When you're browsing the web using your mobile phone, you're going to use your big fat fingers to touch hyperlinks. And if you can't touch them without touching something else instead, then clickable elements too close together. There you go. And then viewport not set. Find out what all these mean and fix them if you're not mobile friendly. If you're using WordPress, then the chances are you're using a mobile friendly theme, and that theme will take care of all of this for you. So you should come away with a clean bill of health, and your page should be mobile friendly and ready for Google's mobile first indexing. In this section of the course, we're going to have a look at page speed, the time it takes to load your web page from the moment someone requests it in their browser. And we're going to try and work out ways in which we can increase this. There are a couple of websites that will tell you your page speed. One of the popular ones is Page Speed Insights by Google, which you can actually go to Google and search for it, and you'll find Page Speed Insights Google Developer. And when you get to that website, all you do is you enter your URL, click Analyze, and it will give you a rundown of the problems in terms of page speed. The one that I actually use, and the one that I'm going to show you a little bit more of in this course, is GTmetrix. I've always used GTmetrix and I don't see any reason to stop. There's a lot of useful tools there which tell us problems with the website. And again, you can go to GTmetrix and you can put a URL in and it will give you a report of the page speed. Obviously, these tools can tell us we have a problem and tell us what the problem is, but it's then up to us to fix them. So we're then going to move on in this section to have a look at ways in which we can fix some of the issues that are common in slower loading web pages. In this video, I want to have a quick look at GTmetrix. It's the tool that I use to look at the speed of my sites and to try to work out if a plugin is causing problems or images are causing problems with page load speeds. When you get there, click on the sign up link and go and sign up for a free account. If you sign up for a free account, then it means you don't have to wait in the long queues to get your URLs analyzed. You have priority to the front of the queue, if you know what I mean. So I am logged in here now. I'm going to type in one of my URLs and click on Analyze. And GTMetrix will then go to my site. It will go from a test server region, which you can edit. If I just open up those user settings, you can see that we have down here analysis options. You can choose from different servers, and there are some other settings there which I'm not going to go through. When the analysis finishes, you get performance scores on the left. So I've got a B page speed score and a C YSlow score. And then you get page details, the time to fully load the page, and the page size. And the page size is one of the more important ones, and we want to try and keep that down. Underneath we have the details, so we have a page speed, which refers to that page speed score, a YSlow, which refers to the YSlow score, waterfall, timings, video and history. We're not going to go through all of those, but we will have a look at the first 3 of those tabs. Underneath we've got recommendations, and these are graded A to E, where A is good, B is not bad, C is okay, D is not really very good, and E needs some attention. And you can see over on the right hand side here that we have a priority listing as well. So anything that is bad and is a high priority are the things that you should try to get sorted out. You can get more details of the problem by clicking the little down arrow next to each thing. And in this case, we have 565 kilobytes of JavaScript is being passed during initial page load. What that means is that all of these JavaScripts have to be passed by the browser before the page can fully load, and it's slowing my website down. And that is a major issue. Got a score of 54 for that. Now, what you may be seeing here is something that is complex to fix, and it is complex to fix. You have to be a programmer to be able to fix these things manually. Later in the course, in this section, we're going to look at ways we can do it without having to have the technical skills. So don't worry, we're not going to go through all of these and work out how to fix them here. We are just going to have a quick look through some of them, and then in the lecture on caching and caching plugins, we'll see how those items that we can add to WordPress can actually speed up the sites for us by fixing some of these issues. We've got inline small CSS. An inline CSS is CSS that is within the HTML code. It's often better to have the CSS as a separate CSS file. And you can see here we've got sem external links CSS. Don't know what that is. And we have another one, yet another related post plugin having its own CSS as well. So this is my home page. There is no related posts on this page in this site at the moment, yet it's still having to call the CSS for that. That's something that would be nice to be able to fix. Let's have a look down this. Leverage browser caching. What this means is that when somebody comes to your site, various elements on the page will be cached, and then if they need to reload them again because they come back, or those images or those resources are used on different pages, then they will load the cached version, and it just speeds up the website and reduces your server load. We've got minify CSS as well. This is a common one because WordPress websites typically have lots and lots of CSS files. To minify CSS just basically means removing any unnecessary white space, making those files a little bit smaller. And we've got optimize images. We have here some suggestions to losslessly compress various files on the page, and it actually tells me how much I would save. Losslessly compress means to strip out metadata that's in the image. It doesn't affect the image quality like lossly compression does, and that's where we reduce the quality of the image, and that reduces the file size. Lossly compression, if there's sort of 2 pixels next to each other and they're almost the same color, then in lossly compression they will be combined into the same color, and you can save information and save space that way. This tool, GTMetrix, suggests losslessly compressing, but as you can see, you're not saving huge amounts. So this file here, this image here, we could save 1.3 kilobytes, and this one we could save 135 bytes, 50 bytes. It's not a huge amount, and it's not a big deal. You can see we've got an A for it, 97. It's not going to speed up the site very much. And you can see that as you go down, there's more and more things that you need to pay attention to. As I said, you have to be a programmer to be able to do anything with all of this, unless you use something like a caching plugin, which I'll show you how to set up so that it can fix a lot of these. One of the more important tabs for me is the waterfall tab. But before we come to that, let's have a quick look at the YSlow, because this will make another set of recommendations to you. Make fewer HTTP requests. You see the page has 27 external JavaScripts. Try combining them into one. Again, you need to be a programmer. The page has 24 external style sheets. Try combining them into one. Well, a lot of this is down to the plugins you're installing and your theme. There's not an awful lot you can do with it other than use plugins to try and fix these issues. We can see that there's another one here, add expires header. And this really is a way of telling the web browser, or rather the server, whether it should serve a cached version of a resource or reload it from scratch. Resources will have an expiry date. Once the expiry date comes, then they will be the server will serve up a fresh version of it. Again, it's not something you can do unless you're a programmer. Use cookie-free domains. I've got an F for that. And there are 58 components on the site that are not cookie-free. And a lot of these are related to themes and plugins. Let's leave the why slow for a moment. Let's go to the waterfall, because this is where I find it more interesting. And what you have here is a chronological list of things that load when the page is being served. And for each thing that needs to be loaded, we have a time as well. So to get to the site, it's taken 107 milliseconds to start receiving information. This is the server response time. And you can see that there is even a graph there that tells you what's happening. The DNS lookup after 21.7 milliseconds. It's connecting after 7.1 milliseconds and so on. And then it starts to receive data at 107 milliseconds. That's not too bad for shared hosting, which is what this site is on. And we can keep going down here. We can see that there is yet another related post plugin. This is the widget CSS file. So that is taking 208 milliseconds to load. This is the Astra theme CSS file. That's taking 283 milliseconds to load. Then we've got Google fonts loading. What you're looking for here is anything where the bar is really long. And I don't see any on this particular site, which is a good thing. Because when the bar is taking a long time, then you know there is an issue somewhere along the road. If it's a particular plugin that is causing these long bars, then consider removing that plugin and then testing for speed again to see whether it makes any difference. One of the nice features is being able to filter what is shown in this list. So at the moment, everything is being shown: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, fonts, images, and other stuff. We can just look at the HTML files, or we could just have a look at the CSS, and we can see all of the CSS files and which ones are taking a long time to load. The longest one I can see is 320. That is, okay, that's a plugin CSS file for a plugin that I use. Let's have a look at JavaScript. And when you select a new item, you need to deselect the old one because it will show both. And if we look down there, we can see that this one here is the slowest JavaScript. It's Google Tag Manager. To go to Google Tag Manager, I don't know whether you are aware of what it is, but it's a way of inserting code into your site. For example, I could insert my analytics tracking into my site using that, but if I found that this was too long, 395 milliseconds, and all I'm doing is inserting my analytics code, then I could find a more economical way of doing that. Let's deselect that and have a look at fonts. And again, we've got all these fonts being loaded. This one here is taking 226 milliseconds, and it's the Font Awesome web fonts. Do I need them? Well, my theme uses them, so yes. Let's have a look at the images, and this is a useful one because we can just have a look at the images and see how long the images are taking to load. We not only get the URL of the image, we get more information about the image as well, and we could open up that image in a browser and see what exactly that image is. So have a look and see if any images are taking a long time to load. Is it because they're too big? Are there ways to optimize images? Before we finish this lecture on the use of GTMetrix, there are a few tips that I ought to share with you. The first one is check the home page and internal pages. Most people, when they're first starting out, they'll just go and check the home page and see that it's fine and that's it. But these GTMetrix reports are based on the page that you're looking at. So each page will have its own report. Therefore, if you create a new page and you think it's loading slowly or you want to check it, go to GTMetrix and put in the URL of the page you want to check. And I would check these things several times. Every time you run GTmetrix, you will get a slightly different report. Things like the total page size won't change, or at least it shouldn't. If it is changing, or it has changed from the first time you did it to the second time you did it, then perhaps the GTmetrix was using a cache version before and now it's using the latest version. But total page size shouldn't change. That is what we want to try and get down, to compress the size of the pages to make them load more quickly. Fully loaded time, pay less attention to that because that will change depending on the server load and so on. Also, I'd recommend you test from different locations because your users will be coming in from around the world. You can test from different locations by going up to the user settings and scroll down, and at the bottom here you've got analysis options and you can choose servers in different regions around the world. Another report I recommend you look at is the waterfall, and do this for each of your sites and see how long it's taking your server to respond to requests. So here you can see someone's coming in trying to look at this page. Let's move the mouse over the bar at the end and that will give me a breakdown of the things leading up to the page starting to be received, and you can see there that we've got 228.8 milliseconds. That's the server response time from the time when the server is now going to start supplying the web page to the user. That should be as low as possible. 228 milliseconds is actually really good for a shared hosting, which is what this page is on. But if you are getting 500 milliseconds or more, then I would seriously consider looking at your host and maybe changing host to something a little bit more reliable, a little bit faster. Another thing to check is your images. We're going to give you a lot more help with that in the next lecture, but make sure your images are all well optimized because that can have the maximum effect on creating smaller pages and faster download times. Also, do you need all those social media profiles on your site? Because a lot of the social media profiles use JavaScripts or images or something that is loaded from another server, and these can take time. Finally here, if you're using WordPress, minimize the use of WordPress plugins. If you need to use one, that's great, but if you don't need to use one, or you're using one just because you think it, it's kind of cool, then remove it if it's not absolutely necessary. These things will slow down WordPress. That is about all we're going to look at with GTmetrix. I've shown you how to use it and I've shown you roughly what to look out for. The most important thing for you to manually optimize is going to be your images. So in the next lecture, we're going to have a look at image optimization because it isn't really very well understood, particularly by people who are just starting out with WordPress. And WordPress does some strange things, and unless you know what is happening, you could be really confused and just give up. So next lecture, let's have a look at image optimization. In this lecture, I'd like to talk about image optimization because it is poorly understood. And the easiest way for me to show you how this all works is to show you some examples. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you a test homepage that I've created. And what I've done is I've uploaded 4 images. They're actually the same image, but they are different quality. If we have a look down the images, you can see that this one is the highest quality one. This is 14 megabytes. The next quality is down to 3.1 megabytes. The next quality is down to 1.5 megabytes. And the last one is only 0.8 megabytes in file size. If you look carefully, you can see the differences, but for some of them, the first 3, I would say that the differences for most people are negligible. In the last one, you can start to see the background becoming a little bit strange. So how did I reduce the quality? Well, I used something called lossy compression, and lossy compression is a way of smushing up images to the smallest possible size. The trade-off is that you lose quality, and most graphic packages can do this. I use Affinity Photo, but whatever you use, you should be able to save your images at a lower quality. To show you how Affinity Photo does it, here's the image. This is the full resolution image. If I go to File and then Export, I can choose how I want to export. You can see that the dimensions of the image, 5,568 pixels wide by 3,712 pixels high. So it's a high resolution image. And the presets that come in Affinity Photo, best, high, medium and low. You've also got the quality slider here. Now you can actually just manually move this. These presets are predefined levels. So the best quality JPEG is 100% quality. There's no real or no major compression done there to the quality of the image. The image quality will stay the same. Under high quality, that goes down to 85. That's a little bit higher than WordPress uses by default. WordPress uses 82. Medium quality the compression is 45%. So we're starting to get a lot of compression, a lot of the details will be getting lost. And then low quality is 10%. And you've seen already that you do get some degradation, or a very noticeable degradation in the quality of the image. So in order to create the image qualities, all I've done is I've gone through each of these four and exported the image at full resolution to begin with. If I bring in my file manager here, you can see we've got the four different qualities: best, high, medium and low. And if I click on the details here, you can see the sizes of those images. So the best quality is a 14.5 megabyte size file. The next one, high, is a 3.1 megabyte. The medium is 1.5 nearly, and the low is 0.8 megabyte. Going back to this page, you can see I've actually included those down below so that you can see what the file sizes are for each of those images. The first thing I'd like to do is actually run this website, or this page anyway, through GTmetrix to see what it comes up with. And the results are in. We've actually got pretty good scores over here, but the thing I want you to look at, more important than anything else, is the total page size. The fully loaded time is 1.8 seconds. That's how long the page took to load, but that will vary depending on traffic and all sorts of other things. A more accurate measure of how well optimized the page is for page loading is the page size. Now that's only 773 kilobytes. If I bring in the file sizes of the images I uploaded, you can see one of those was 14 megabytes, another was 3, another was 1.5, and another one was nearly 1. That means the images alone were around about 20 megabytes in size. So what happened to the sizes of those images? We can get a good idea if we go back to the web page and we download the images. Let's save the image as, and we'll just save it with the normal names, and then we can see what they refer to. Going to download this one and then download the low resolution one. Okay, let's open up the download folder and have a look. And if we bring in the original file size and then look at the size that is actually on the web page, the original size from 14 megabytes has gone down to 114, from 3 megabytes down to 114, from 0.8 down to 123, and from 1.5 down to 115. So clearly WordPress is compressing these images for us. So you may think, is it worth trying to optimize images before you upload them to the server? And that's what I want to have a look at here in this video. So the next experiment then that I've set up here is an identical web page. The only difference is that before I uploaded the images, I actually resized them. If I bring Affinity Photo back in and show you, this is the full size image, a full resolution image. I exported these, but before I exported them, I changed the photo dimensions to 1000 wide. The ratio of width to height is locked, so it calculates the height for me, 667 pixels. So I've changed the image from over 5500 pixels wide down to 1000 pixels wide, and then I saved the image under best, high, medium and low quality again. So let's have a look at that web page and have a look at the images. This is the first image. This is the highest quality, and it's now 627 kilobytes. The next one is 137, the next one is 67 kilobytes, and the lowest quality is 34, and that one really isn't suitable for the web page. You can see the degradation in the quality. But if you were to compare the 627 kilobyte one with the 14, not that one, let's go back up, the 14 megabyte version on the original page that hadn't been resized, then the quality is actually pretty good. So let's run this page now through. I'm going to go back to the home page of GTmetrix, and I'm going to run this page through and see what comes back. And with the resized images, something weird has happened here. We've now got a 2.1 second load time, but the important factor here is it's now 1.15 megabytes in size. How does that work? If we go down to the waterfall tab and we go and look at the images, we can see that the three images are here, and look at the file sizes: 627, 136, 66, 33. Let me move this up the screen a little bit so I have room to bring in my file manager. And we can see that these are the same sizes, there or thereabouts, of the actual files that I uploaded. So they're not being compressed. Let's go back to the web page and we'll download those images. We'll bring in the download folder. These are the files I've just downloaded. Ignore that first file. It's a temporary file and I'm not sure why it's there, but it won't let me cancel. And let's bring in the sizes of the original files that we uploaded to WordPress. Now, if you compare the sizes, they're actually identical. That one is that one down there and that one there is across there. But the page sizes are identical, so WordPress hasn't compressed those. Now, I've always been under the impression that WordPress optimized and compressed all images when you uploaded them to your media library, but that doesn't seem to be happening. I haven't seen this discussed anywhere, so I'm going to tell you what I think is happening. Let's go into the media settings inside your dashboard. Now, in the media settings, you've got some image sizes that have been specified. Thumbnail size 150, 150, medium size 300, 300, large size 1024, 1024. These are predefined by WordPress. What I want you to make a note of is the maximum sizes of this large size image. These predefined image sizes are used by WordPress in various areas. So for example, if we were to go and have a look in the media library itself uses these thumbnails. The large size image is going to be the largest possible resolution that you can get on your web page. So if you upload, or if you say that you want a maximum of 1024 by 1024, that is the maximum resolution you can have on your site. If you need higher resolution images, then you need to increase that. Okay, back to the question, why wasn't WordPress optimizing and compressing those images? Well, if I just bring them in for a second, we had these images that I had resized to 1000 pixels wide, and these are the sizes that the image resulted in. When we put them onto a web page and then checked the web page, we had no compression of the images. WordPress was serving these sized images, so there wasn't compression, but they were 1000 pixels in width. They were below the largest size available. Therefore, WordPress didn't have to do anything to them. Common sense tells me that WordPress should still have tried to compress them, but it doesn't seem to have done that. So it seems that if WordPress needs to resize the images, it will then also compress them as well. To test this, I created a web page where I uploaded two images. One of them is 1000 pixels in width. The other one is 1050. So this one is below the maximum size. This one is a fraction above the maximum size. So this second one is going to have to be resized by WordPress when it's uploaded. The first one won't. If my theory is correct, then at least what we would see is this first one is not compressed when it's uploaded, but this second one is compressed when it's resized. The actual images are very close in size. The 1000 pixel width image is 629 kilobytes. The 1050 is 681 kilobytes. So all we need to do is let's download them and see what size the image is. And I have actually already downloaded these, but I'll download them again. Okay, overwrite those. And let's have a look at them in the folder. Okay, so let's bring in the before. Before, the 1000 was 629 kilobytes and the 1000 is 629 kilobytes. The 1050 is before, when we uploaded, 681, but after we uploaded, 98. That is the one that WordPress had to resize because it was over the maximum allowed or the maximum defined dimensions of images. So it had to resize it, and therefore I'm presuming that that is when it did the compression. On this one, it didn't have to resize it, therefore it didn't do the compression. Time will tell whether this is actually a feature of WordPress or it's a bug in WordPress. It may be fixed in future editions, but just be aware of this, that if your images are not being resized, they may not be compressed by WordPress either, so you need to take the extra measures to make sure the images you upload are correct to begin with. When you do resize images like this, I recommend that you follow through one more step, and that step is to compress those images. To compress images, there are tools available. The one I've used for this is called CloudPresso, and all you need to do is grab a file. I'm going to take this 627 file here and drop it over onto the box, and then select how you want it compressed. I selected very high compression, and it will download it, and you'll be able to see that the file size has gone from 626 down to 78 kilobytes, and then download them. What I've done is I've created a web page that includes the resized and compressed images. So these images now are resized to 1000 wide, and they're compressed with this Cloud Presso. So we then end up with this page, and again the quality is excellent. That first size, which is the best quality, is 83 kilobytes. This one is 79, next one is 66, and the last one is 29 kilobytes. So let's take that URL now and run it through GTmetrix. And the results have come in. The page load time, ignore that. It's all to do with traffic and server load and so on. We're interested in the total page size. And we're now down to 565 kilobytes. In the very first web page that we looked at, where we used high resolution images, the page size was 773. When we just resized images down to 1000, the page size went up because WordPress wasn't compressing the images when we uploaded them to the media library. In the last case, where we resized the images and then we compressed them, we've got down to 565 kilobytes. That is a saving of 208 kilobytes and represents a change of about 27% smaller pages, and that can only be good for your page load times. As I said, ignore the fully page loaded time. If I was to retest this, I'd get a very different result. We're looking at the page size. Now you might be wondering, we resized down to 1000, the page load time increased because the images got bigger, then we compressed them and we got them smaller again. Could we not use the full resolution images and just compress them? So let's just try that. What I'm going to do is I'm back on the compressing tool, and the full resolution image, the highest resolution was 14 and a bit megabytes. So let's see what this tool can compress that down to. And as you see, it's compressed down to 1.53 megabytes. So it's a lot bigger than resizing it down to 1000 and then compressing. So the lesson to be learnt from this is that you do need to resize your images to a more appropriate size and then compress them before you upload them if you want to maximize the page load time by reducing the amount of images or the image size that has to be downloaded when somebody visits your page. A question then becomes, well, what size should I resize it down to? It is a really good question, and it all depends on what you want to use your images for. If you're a photographer or you're a fashion design site or something and you need really high resolution images and you need to be able to cater for Retina display monitors, then maybe you should be uploading bigger images, 2 to 3 times the content width. You can tell the content width by using the Chrome developer tools, which we will look at later in the course, and just clicking over onto the main content area to see what size it is. I can see that my main content area is 1110. Now my images aren't critical. I don't need them to be super high resolution on Retina monitors. So I would just upload images a maximum width of 1110 if I wanted them full width on the page. If I only wanted an image to be half the width on the page, I would resize it to 500 or 550 pixels. If I only wanted it a quarter, I would resize it to 250 width. And that's how I would work it. But if you are trying to cater for Retina display monitors, you are going to need to multiply that content width by 2 or 3 times. That means that when somebody comes and visits your site with a Retina monitor, WordPress will serve up the very highest resolution, so a 3000 pixel wide image, rather than what you're seeing on my screen, which isn't a Retina display and it's only displaying it as 1000 pixels wide. But don't forget your media settings. If you are planning on catering for Retina display monitors and you want to have 3000 pixel images, 3000 wide pixel images, you need to change the maximum width and maximum height here. Otherwise, when you upload those images to WordPress, WordPress will reduce them down to the numbers that you've got here. So that's something to bear in mind. The lessons to be learnt from this lecture are that A, you should be resizing your images, and B, you need to compress them as well, and then you'll get the smallest possible page load size for download, and that will result in faster downloading of the pages.